Packed with bright, fresh, bold flavors and beer pairings to complement each dish, my new book, The Craft Brewery Cookbook, brings the beer garden straight to your kitchen. It'll be released on May 10th, and you can pre-order now wherever books are sold. Organized into chapters according to beer type, including hoppy ales, lagers and pilsners, wheat beers, and Belgian-style ales, this cookbook will help you discover each beer's style and flavor profile and how it pairs with the accompanying recipes, each from a different American brewery, including many from the voices you've heard on this show. Whether you're a fan of fruited kettle sours or New England IPAs, the Craft Brewery Cookbook will show you how to create the ideal meal to accompany your favorite beer. It's published by Princeton Architectural Press, and you can pre-order now wherever you buy books and get it delivered on May 10th. The Craft Brewery Cookbook breathes new life into the concept of food and drink pairing by offering an inspired take on contemporary beer styles and cuisine. Pre-order your copy today wherever you get your books. Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. This week, I'm talking with Dana Henion. She's the co-founder and co-owner of Van Henion Brewing in Bend, Oregon. And we're talking about starting a brewery during a pandemic, finding ways to keep the brewing flame alive, and creating lagers that resonate with drinkers. And we're able to bring you this show each week, thanks to the companies that want to support journalism in the beer space. You can help us out too. Learn more by emailing sponsor@beeredge.com. Speaking of that, you should also go visit beeredge.com to sign up for the newsletter, to catch up with the Beer Edge podcast, and to check out our merch page, which is full of This Week in Rauch Beer gear, as well as Defend Pilsner mugs. Lagers continue to get the love in the craft beer space. And this week, I'm glad to have Dana Henion on the show. She's the co-founder, co-owner, and brewer at Van Henion Brewing, a new operation that opened in a brewery space that was previously occupied by Boneyard Brewing in Bend, Oregon. She runs the brewery with her husband, Mark, and longtime friend and colleague, John Van Duzer. Together, they say it's a combined 65 plus years of brewing experience at some of the state's better known breweries. This includes Oakshire, Deschutes, Ninkasi, and the aforementioned Boneyard. Similar to just about everyone else, the last 2 years have been difficult, she says, but ultimately the pandemic, which led to Boneyard merging with Deschutes and the availability of their production space, led to the trio being able to chase their dream and open their own spot. They say it'll be a lager brewery and started brewing and distributing earlier this year, but Henion also says that they're going to introduce other beers from time to time, following a model of balancing consumer demands and wants along with brewer passions. From building out a tap room and seeing the warning signs of burnout to how the brewing community has evolved but still seems tight-knit, we cover a lot in a short period of time. I spoke to Dana shortly after she had returned from Duluth, Georgia, where Good Word Brewing had just put on its Little Beer Fest, a celebration of all things session. So I started there. Here's our conversation. Was that one of the first festivals you've done since the world got turned upside down?
With our brewery, yes. Actually, I think it is also just with it, even my previous job before this, it was my first festival since the pandemic. But it was extra exciting because it was our brewery's first invitational, our first fest. We sold our first keg in January of this year. So it was a pretty big deal to be invited to go out there.
I mean, you're no stranger to festivals, I imagine, being in and around beer for as long as you have been. I've been asking folks because we're getting back into fest season, and it seems like last year in 21, there were fits and starts with it, and people were still a little gun shy. Now here in 22, people are just going full steam at them. Before everything fully hits its stride, are there things from festivals past that you'd love to see reset and not make its way into this new age, this new era? Are there ways to improve upon festivals now that we've had a pause?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure that I can say that there's anything too annoying about fests or things that I don't prefer, except for maybe when there's like a lot of red tape, like tokens and wristbands, and I don't know, just making it very hard for people to kind of maneuver the fest without lines and I don't know, almost like money grabbing sort of. And those are always at the big fest, like, citywide or things like that, not invitationals or anything. That stuff's always kind of frustrating. And I think those are sort of the fests that I enjoy the least. I always like the smaller fests. They're more intimate and, they got a little live music or, you get to set up next to your friends, that kind of thing. I've always really enjoyed. Yeah.
There's been this rise of invitational festivals where the brewers themselves are putting them on. And it seems that, it is brewers putting on the types of fests that they know other brewers are going to appreciate first. And then the ticket holding attendees will just have a good time because the brewers are having a good time.
Yeah.
Does that sort of square with, do you feel like if you're having a good time, people will have a good time as well?
I think so. I mean, that's every fest that I feel like is the most fun is one that is kind of driven by the brewers. Like there's that Pilsner Fest down in SoCal that I know is a blast. And that's another like, kind of a niche fest. And I think when a brewery is getting that excited or a collection of them about something, I think people are naturally just gravitated towards it.
What's the last 2 years been like for you?
Really different. I don't know. Before the pandemic started, I was brewing at Boneyard, and I was heading up the mixed fermentation program at Boneyard and getting really into that. We were finally starting to take off where I could spend most of my hours over at the mixed fermentation program.
Okay.
And that was really getting stuff together for festivals and things. You get the little one-off barrel aged beers, you get racked and work on bottle projects and stuff. And then the pandemic hit and that whole program got shut down because there was no more draft and going out. So then I got kind of thrown back into shift brewing and having done it so long, I was starting to lose my passion. I was starting to get a little burnout. And then the merger with Deschutes happened and, the future kind of opened up, but also seemed a little uncertain. So that was a very kind of chaotic and unstable moment in time there. But things started to kind of come together and make more sense for me and my partners and the rest of the people at the brewery here. And we worked towards what we're doing now. And as soon as that momentum started, things kind of made more sense and felt better. And it's been really exciting. So I'd say the last 9 months have been thrilling and, nerve-wracking, but very cool. The last 2 years of my career have been completely crazy, I guess.
Was owning a brewery ever part of your long-term career plan?
Yes, that was 100%. I think it's always a brewer's dream. So it was always kind of a little tongue in cheek, like, oh, I want to have a lager brewery one day. I've actually joked about it with people, cause it seems kind of like a long shot. But me and my husband talked about it when we got together, and that we would specifically do lagers. And, I think even when I left Eugene to move to work at Boneyard, I had it in my mind that, this would be something we do, because Mark wanted to see this through and help Tony out and get this brewery, get Boneyard's production facility, just streamlined. But I always thought that I probably couldn't be content, not being able to express my creative side and have more control of my own future, I guess.
Yeah. So even when you were doing mixed firm and one-offs, your mind was still traveling back to lagers?
I mean, I was in terms of so like I was doing mixed firm and I could go make my own beers at Brew One. We all the brewers kind of cycled out of the smaller brewery.
Yeah.
And I'd make like a Mexican lager or something like that. So always, the passion was always there. The mixed firm thing, I think for me was a way to enjoy my job, to have fun. But I don't think I would have opened a brewery that specialized in that or anything.
Yeah. It strikes me that the pandemic has crystallized a lot of long-term visions for brewers and I think a lot of folks in life as well. We've seen people resign from jobs that made them unhappy to try to pursue new careers or find places where they feel a little bit more valued. You've been doing this for a while. When you have people from the outside who hear what you do for a living, maybe meet you for the first time, out in the world, it's like, wow, you're a brewer. That's so cool. And they're not thinking about the shift work or the keg washing or, a lot of the really hard part of it. It's that internet meme, right? What my friends think I do. And it's just a picture of people partying all the time. I guess I'm trying to get at, like, what have you found works to keep burnout from coming or getting stagnant in the job from sort of taking over?
I feel like I just dodged having to figure that out.
So you were getting there.
I was getting there. I was really, when I started, first couple years at my first brewery, it was all learning. It was all exciting. Second job, same thing.
So first job was where?
Oakshire Brewing.
Okay. In Eugene.
Yeah. And the second job was in Ninkasi. And while I was there, they commissioned a 90-barrel brew house. So that was thrilling.
That was the one that had, that's when they were building that pipeline, right? From one to the next.
Yeah. It was like the bridge.
Yeah.
Between the two. Yeah. There's the 60-barrel and then the 90-barrel Hoopman. And also that's very fresh in my career still, like 6 years in, still very fresh. And then here, and then at Boneyard, still same feeling, still fresh, still learning. And then it was about the 5-year mark here was when I started getting into the mix firm and my career was changing a bit. So that was exciting. And then when I got thrown sort of back into shift brewing, no events, no fun stuff. That's when I started to go like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I doing? Am I going to try to go to another brewery and try something, where I might have more control or more creativity or something? These were thoughts that were crossing my mind, and it was unrelated to Boneyard. I was very happy working there. It was more just like, it looks like for the future, this isn't changing. So either I change it, I was definitely going to stay in brewing, but I'm like, I can't shift brew forever. It's just like, this is getting a little crazy. And then everything happened with the new facility and the opportunity to have some ownership. And, this is all I wanted. And, crossing my fingers that we can sell beer and make this dream happen. So
let's talk about the dream. Let's talk about what Van Henion is going to be, or what it is now, and then what you want it to be. So you're partnered with John and then married to Mark. And so the three of you are in this together. And how did the three of you decide what the brewery was going to be, at least at first?
Sure. I think Mark and I were we knew we were going to do a lager brewery if we ever opened one. So when the opportunity came up, that was our idea, the idea, I should say. And so when John came on board, or we all, talked about doing this together, it was just simply, a suggestion to John, we were thinking lagers, and we were thinking probably should make an IPA because we're here in the Pacific Northwest and you can't really get away with not doing that. People want one. And
like a proper IPA, like a clear, bitter West Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, one thing that the three of us all had in common was that we all love lagers and we love German style beers. One of John's babies is his Kolsch, and that's the Kolsch that we have now is his creation. And so it was about making beers that we all like to drink. And that was something that all three of us were 100% on board with. So it wasn't a very tough meeting between the three of us to figure out the styles of beers that we were going to make. I think, I'm sure I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he's thought about this himself too. So that's why it came so easily. We all work well together and like the same styles of beer. So
there's obviously been lager specific breweries that have been operating in and around the US for, quite some time, some newer ones, some older ones. What's been the reception? Like, are people excited about a lager brewery? Like when you tell people what they're doing, because I feel like a lot of like the pastry stouts or hazies or whatever gets a lot of attention, and lagers can be seen as boring even though they're not. Are people generally excited?
Yeah, I think we're getting really good reception. We're also not like quite there yet with being lagers only, just because we have a pretty large capacity brew house here in brewery. And we can't just be making one-off beers that people don't want to drink. So we're very aware that we can't just make a Schwartz beer out of nowhere and hope our distributor can do something with it. So we're kind of baby stepping our way into this dream. We're not going full tilt. We've got to see what we can sell and try to make the consumer happy and stay true to ourselves at the same time.
So how do you do that? Like, give me an example of like, what are you making right now instead of the Schwartz beer? Like that will.
Okay, we have a Pilsner that's about, I think, 4 weeks away from being ready, maybe 3. And we're going to put it in a 16-ounce can. And we're currently just doing 12-ounce cans in draft. And we thought, we already have a Helles, which is a style that we love. And that's why it was our first beer we made. We made the IPA. We love IPAs. So we made an IPA that we like to drink, and that's doing really well. Then we made John's Kolsch, and we thought, if we're going to do another light beer, another lager, which we definitely want a Pilsner, how can we make this a little more appealing? So we think the 60-ounce can, might help a consumer out in Portland who doesn't know who we are.
Yeah.
We'll see, maybe it'll mess up our Helles production, or, we're so new at this, or new with our brewery, that we don't really know what's going to happen with that.
But the eventual goal is to transition to all lagers.
Yeah. And I think we will always have an IPA. It says that kind of in our, or kind of about us, is that we'll always have the Pacific Northwest or the West Coast style IPA. We love a dry Irish stout. So, maybe one day we'll make one of those, okay. But we're going to be focused on making quality lagers, because that's our passion. And if we can, maybe do some contract brewing to fill up our tank space to kind of take the pressure off of us, then sure. We can probably have some more fun and make those fun lager styles like a rope beer or something like that. Yeah.
You're talking to the right audience now. What do you love most about smoked beers?
I can't put my finger on it. I think that maybe just kind of reminds me of like a ham sandwich or something. It's just a real fun, tasty, lots of flavor, kind of, it's the word, just like a complex flavor. It's just enjoyable. I just enjoy drinking them.
I love it. You mentioned sort of figuring things out. You've obviously been a brewer in various capacities over your career, but now you are a brewery owner. What have been some of the bigger challenges that you didn't anticipate that you've been faced with in the last couple of months?
We saw this coming, but, selling beer, that's probably like the biggest. Sure. I mean, we're not having any issues with producing beer because the system that we're on is a system we've been on for the last 7 years.
Okay.
So, our glycol actually did go out the other day because of a windstorm, but we fixed it quickly because, we know how to work the system. So, like beer production, that hasn't been an issue. For us, it's like we're a bunch of brewers. We're not really like events people. We're not marketing people. And so I've been kind of trying to brand us and like market us and work with salespeople. And that's all new to us. And it's hard. It's actually a lot of work. And it's a little stressful. And it's just like, you want to come off as authentic and you want people to like your beer, but you don't want to shove it down their throats. You just want to let them know about it.
Yeah. Have there been things that you've been surprised about enjoying, like challenges that, I don't know, I've been enjoying, this is actually brewing related, but whenever I'd make a one-off beer of my own recipe at Brew One, it was probably the most thrilling thing. I'd check it every day, taste the wort, just obsess over it in a way that felt different than other beers. And that's like currently my feeling about everything in every tank, which is a new feeling. Just excitement about the beer and the concern about it is heightened. Yeah.
And also, and I know that kind of implies that I wasn't concerned before, but always it's got to be different when it's your own baby.
Yeah.
And then we're actually learning a lot more about lagers than before because now we're making them where, I think we only made the Pilsner really at Boneyard. So we're trying some new techniques and stuff and talking to people more, and we're more engaged than we've been previously, like engaged with other lager breweries and other brewers, and just, kind of feel like we're learning new stuff. And, that's all pretty cool.
Can I ask where your education has been taking you? Like, what have you been learning about lagers that has you excited about what you're going to be putting into tanks? Like, where have you been focusing your studies?
Well, I guess the newest thing that was kind of a fun, interaction I had with Goodword was they're like memes they have about spunding beer. They have like spund or die and all that.
Yes.
I had only heard about spunding, but I've never worked at a brewery that did that. And we, realized we want, that big tight head on our beers. And so we just started spunding. And
can I put you on the spot just for anybody who's listening who might not be familiar with the term?
Oh, sure. Spund means to bung in German. So it's just bunging your beer before the end of fermentation. And then that way, all that CO2 kind of gets absorbed back into the beer, naturally carbonating it. And it's supposed to create smaller bubbles, that don't sort of dissipate as fast when you're pouring the beer.
Yeah. And so you've been messing around with that then?
Yes. And it's just been, kind of like a little fun thing to get to work every day and check the pressure on the tank and check the carb and, see before we've even, transferred it, see where the level's at. And we actually haven't had a beer that's been packaged yet that we use that process for. We currently have 4 beers in tanks that are being spun, but those ones still haven't made it to package yet.
Okay.
So I haven't been able to test to see if our head retention's better.
I know Oregon is different in that it has a long beer history. People have worked at various places. There's a lot of relationships and kinship that exists in and around the beer industry. it also seems that, with 9,000 plus breweries and everybody being, stressed out about the pandemic, that things are shifted a little bit as well. And people are sort of watching their own backs a little bit more. But when you're talking about sharing information and, learning from folks, do you still feel the camaraderie of the industry is largely intact? Still.
Yeah, I can't speak for anyone else but myself. So
sure.
I think absolutely. I feel I like breweries that share information with each other, that help each other out, because, we're all the same people. We're in this world, like we found ourselves in this career in this part of the country. We're obviously have a lot in common, and I wouldn't be too thrilled to know people that weren't, open about, making beer better. So yeah, I feel like, my interactions with other breweries, especially starting out our new brewery, have been really excellent. And there's a new brewery in town that just started out, Funky Fauna. They're I think they opened maybe a few months before us, but I feel like a lot of kinship with them. Like we're kind of going down this road together now in a way, so I like to check in on them and see how they're doing and how their beers are, and, just hoping for the best for them.
Let me ask you about, so you're making beer, it's going out in kegs, you're packaging beer, it's going out into the world. The tap room is not yet open to the public.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And you're in what used to be Boneyard's space.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about what you want the tap room to be, because I remember that space from visiting years ago, and I mean it was small and intimate, and had a very distinct personality that was very much tied to the beer and to the brands. And I imagine that, if you live in Bend and you're going there, that, people expect a certain thing. How have you been approaching what you want the space to be when it is now your space?
Yeah.
And how do you square the two?
Yeah. So there's two Boneyard facilities.
Yeah.
There's the smaller brewery, which is the one it sounds like you visited.
Okay.
That had the very distinct tap room.
Yes.
So where we are located is the large production facility that we've been working at primarily, or mostly the whole time we've been here. And that didn't have a tasting room.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why our tasting room is taking so long is the city does not like that we are trying to start something. They're requiring a lot of permits and things they've got to look at and approve. So we thought we had a hand washing sink and we are going to build a bar and open the doors. And then they came in and said, no, you're not. So yeah, so we might be a little ways out. Like we have to get an architect in here to check out some plumbing situations and draw up plans that they approve. And then we have to do some plumbing. So, that kind of put and that kind of put the pressure on us definitely to sell some beer, get a contract going, because the tasting room is definitely going to help us a lot with bringing people in to see who we are and try our beer. So that was a bummer that we didn't see coming.
I'm sorry about the confusion. I misunderstood when I was reading on you guys, but
yeah.
And then thinking about though what you want an ideal place to be, because there are lager houses and people do it sort of in their own way. When you do eventually get the city in line and the permits done and the architectural, everything's sorted out. Can you see it in your mind's eye of what you want it to be?
Yeah. That was kind of an aspect of my personality, or my, I don't know, like the things that I enjoy doing, that sort of was able to come out and be helpful to the company unexpectedly. So I designed the tasting room aesthetic, and we've actually pretty much put it together. We were trying to be open as early as January. So the tasting room's looks pretty complete. And it's got, velvet wallpaper and old school vintage swag lamps, cuckoo clock and sort of Bitburger mirrors and hardwood floors. It's just kind of a cozy vintage aesthetic. And it's sort of just a place that, I think I just thought this would be a really nice place to drink a beer and stay a while. That was kind of the vibe that I wanted, that you would sit down and you'd think, I'm not getting out of here for a while. I'd have a few more, kind of a thing.
I like that. When you're thinking about sitting around, staying for a while, creating these atmospheres, and I think lagers can lend themselves to, most beers can lend themselves to good conversation among friends or letting the mind wander a bit. As you think about future beers that you want to make, not just taste, but do you try to think about what a beer can convey, what it can put out into, the mind of a drinker, or what you hope it does?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
It was a weird question, to be fair, but yeah.
I can say that one of my favorite styles is a Dunkelweiss, and I just love the smell. I love the flavor, the appearance, everything about it kind of makes me feel a bunch of different feelings. That seems like a certain time and place. And I don't drink them all the time, so when I do, it feels really special.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what you mean, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Of just sort of some of those intangibles, like outside of the glass, not just the flavors, but what sort of emotions can it elicit, or feelings it can bring on.
Sure, like a big stein with a 5-inch foam head on it might make you feel kind of like you're in the old world.
Yeah. And is that, as you're thinking about when the tap room opens?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe, sort of feeling like you're somewhere special and taking it in.
I understand. I've been asking folks on the show for a while now. The premise is essentially, my wife and I were rewatching The Good Place, and there's this whole aspect of the show with a green door where you can walk through a green door and be anywhere at any point in time with anybody that you want. And so if such technology existed on this plane of existence, and you could finish this conversation and walk through a green door and be in any pub or any brewery anywhere in the world with anybody you wanted, where'd you want to go? Who'd you want to be with? What would you want to be drinking?
Well, it's not a person.
Okay.
But I think I'd want to be with my pup, Wiley, who is no longer with us.
Okay.
And I'd want to be drinking, let's say, Dunkelweiss.
Okay.
And I don't know of any specific breweries that would take me there. Maybe a fictional brewery. I've never been to Germany. Maybe a nice Bavarian spot.
Okay. But just a good beer, your good pup, and a comfortable setting.
Yeah.
I like that. I haven't traveled for a while. I'm looking forward to traveling and hopefully getting down to Bend again, to seeing you guys hopefully open. What's Bend like these days, beer wise, for the folks who are out in the world these days? Is it the same great beer spot it's always been? Getting better? What's the read on the town from a local?
Yeah, I think it's getting better. I think people are really excited that things are opening up again. It definitely feels busy. Like people are getting out and about. I think we've had a few, like Boss Rambler just opened up a new brewery, and they might be working on a pub there.
Okay.
And I don't know. There's been a number of kind of developments that just sort of came out of the pandemic that are really fun. So I think the beer scene's kind of starting to thrive again. So it's exciting. It's definitely a better vibe than it was a year ago.
Well, that's good to hear, and a good reason to visit. Dana, thanks for being on the show this week. Thanks for taking the time and sharing what you all are doing, and I'm excited to see it all come together.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's been fun.
I often have lagers on the mind. What about you? What's a style you'd like to see more on taps or on offer from breweries? Let me know. You can email me. It's John Hall. That's JOHNHOLL @beeredge.com, or you can get with me on Twitter at John_Hall. Check out beeredge.com for our This Week in Rauk Beer and Defend Pilsner merch, and follow along on social media at The Beer Edge. Of course, This Week in Rauk Beer is also online. The Facebook group is easy to search, and on Twitter and Instagram, it's at TW Rauk Beer. And we're able to bring you this show each week thanks to the companies that want to support independent journalism in the beer space. If you'd like to learn more about our surprisingly affordable rates, please reach out to sponsor at beeredge.com. And speaking of that, please check out the Craft Brewery Cookbook. Packed with bright, fresh, bold flavors and beer pairings to complement each dish, my new book, The Craft Brewery Cookbook, brings the beer garden straight to your kitchen. It'll be released on May 10th, and you can pre-order now wherever books are sold. Organized into chapters according to beer type, including hoppy ales, lagers and pilsners, wheat beers, and Belgian-style ales, this cookbook will help you discover each beer's style and flavor profile and how it pairs with the accompanying recipes, each from a different American brewery, including many from voices you've heard on this show. So whether you're a fan of fruited kettle sours or New England IPAs, the Craft Brewery Cookbook will show you how to create the ideal meal to accompany your favorite beer. It's published by Princeton Architectural Press, and you can pre-order now wherever you buy books and get it delivered on May 10th. The Craft Brewery Cookbook, it breathes new life into the concept of food and drink pairings by offering an inspired take on contemporary beer styles and cuisine. Again, pre-order your copy today, wherever you get your books. A reminder, check out the Beer Edge podcast with Andy Crouch. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, including a bunch of shows coming up from Miami. And the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. As for this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Hall. New episodes of Drink Beer, Think Beer release every Wednesday. And that's when I'm going to be back again to, yes, drink beer and to think beer.